This is the ASUS ROG Zephyrus G14, and it's one of the most compelling laptops out there right now. Not only does this laptop have a ton of power that you can do almost anything with, whether that be watching content, coding, 3D modeling, or gaming, but that, combined with the design, display, and really most of the elements within this machine, are what separates it from almost every other PC laptop. That being said, there are still a couple areas where that could be better, some of which can be addressed and others you just have to live with, but there is a lot in here worth discussing. So with that said, let's get into it. Hey everyone, Kyle Erickson here. I've always found it quite difficult to find a laptop that I'm 100% satisfied with. Over the years, I've switched back and forth between PC and Mac laptops, all of which have had their pros and cons. I would say for the past few years, I've been the most happy with MacBooks because they support my workflow with almost no hangups, and the quality is great. And since Apple Silicon came out, I've had a very hard time moving away from it without feeling like I'm making a substantial trade-off, which usually boils down to two things: battery life and build quality. With build quality specifically, the design or makeup of a product is really the first introduction that we get to it, and if something feels cheap or doesn't look right, maybe there's a loose trackpad or it feels too plasticky, it kinda puts a damper on how excited you get about the product, so getting that right is super important. With PC laptops, I find sometimes you have to search around quite a bit to find something with a really solid design, but in the case of this Zephyrus G14, ASUS has absolutely nailed it. The G14 has a CNC machined aluminum body that is 0.72 inches thick and weighs in at 3.46 pounds, making it roughly the same size as the 14-inch MacBook Pro, which is outstanding considering that this is a gaming laptop. And on that note, the thing I love about the G14 is it has a sleek, minimal design without any overly aggressive elements that you normally see on gaming products. The model that I have here is platinum white in color. All the lines and branding are clean and premium looking, where you do still get a bit of flair with a slash lighting array built into the lid. That is made up of 7 LED sections that not only look neat, but are also functional for things like notifications if you're not physically at the laptop. If you are using it, the trackpad looks and feels great. I like that it extends from the bottom of the keyboard to the edge of the base with just 2 simple lines, and everything is smooth where nothing is loose or rattles around at all. Sometimes I find that plagues a lot of laptops, and the keyboard is fantastic as well, with RGB illuminated keys that have a nice amount of travel and a good tactile feel that are both great to type on and to game with. I've been using this a lot with coding and writing for these videos, where the key placement and layout feels natural, and I do like that there are dedicated volume controls above the keyboard as well, which, by the way, the speakers in this thing are outstanding. There are a total of 6 speakers in the G14 that support Dolby Atmos, and not only do they get quite loud, but they've got an incredible amount of depth and clarity for laptop speakers. Even compared to the MacBook Pro, which I think arguably has the best sounding laptop speakers out there, these stack up really well. Whether you're listening to music or watching content, everything is crisp and clear regardless of volume level, and pairs well with the G14's display, which is my favorite thing about this laptop. That display is a 2880 by 1800 resolution, 120Hz OLED panel. It's got nice slim bezels along the edges, and you would be hard-pressed to find another laptop screen that looks this good. It's definitely nice for watching content, as it does have HDR support, but this has insanely good color accuracy, covering 100% of the P3 gamut, which is actually better than the MacBook Pro. So if you're someone who edits photos or videos or really does any kind of color critical work, you can't go wrong here. The screen is glossy with a decent anti-reflective coating, so reflections are fairly limited. It might be of some concern if you're viewing dark content in bright areas, but it does get relatively bright at 500 nits peak brightness in HDR and about 400 nits in SDR, so it's definitely viewable indoors, but outdoors can sometimes be a struggle. That being said, the thing that this is really made for is gaming, and combined with the G14's performance, everything on here is super smooth and looks very good. The picture is sharp, the colors pop, and this is G-Sync enabled with a response time of 0.2 milliseconds, where you see virtually no ghosting. I've been playing a lot of Watch Dogs Legion on here. I'm kind of a sucker for those games, but also my staples like Madden, Rust, and multiple others at fairly high settings, which does bring in a lot of detail, and is probably a big reason as to why everything looks so good. Above that display is a webcam that looks decent enough. It's not gonna blow the doors off by any means in terms of quality, but that, along with a built-in mic, are more than good enough for video chats. I probably wouldn't use them if you plan on streaming and you're concerned with quality, but really nothing I'd be concerned with otherwise. More importantly, it's what's inside this machine that counts, where this particular G14 has a Ryzen AI 9 HX370 CPU, 32 gigs of 8000 MHz DDR5 RAM, a 1TB NVMe SSD, and an NVIDIA RTX 5070 Ti GPU with 12 gigs of VRAM, and this thing is an absolute beast. Looking at benchmarks, they are generally a bit higher on my MacBook Pro in CPU performance, but the G14's GPU performance destroys the MacBook. The SSD speed on the G14 is also great, but real-world use has been where it's been the most impressive. Like I said, I can run most games on here at fairly high settings. Watch Dogs Legions and Clair Obscur, and frankly most graphically intensive games, run at full resolution on Ultra at around 70 FPS. Madden stays consistently over 100 FPS, and like most gaming laptops, it does warm up quite a bit at max performance, and the fans will run pretty hard the entire time that you're doing anything resource intensive. Now, if you unplug the G14 from power, it's gonna automatically kick out of turbo mode and go into performance mode, where frame rates will usually drop to about half of what they were. That still isn't bad, say if you're traveling, but it will eat through battery life, which I'll touch on in a bit. But the things that I love doing on here the most, probably unsurprisingly, are related to creative apps. Again, having that super color accurate display makes this ideal for photo or video editing, both of which run amazingly smooth on the G14. Editing photos in Lightroom and Affinity Photo are great, even when using some of the more taxing features, as is video editing in DaVinci Resolve, where there is virtually no slowness at all, even with some of the 6K footage that I've been shooting with my new camera. It actually feels quite similar to the recent MacBooks that I've used in that sense, but where the G14 really pulls ahead of my MacBook Pro is with GPU-heavy apps like Blender, where things are much smoother on the Zephyrus, which isn't surprising, given it does have that 5070 Ti with 12 gigs of VRAM. I even find that when I'm using this in silent or eco mode, not only is it great for casual usage like web browsing or watching media, but I'm able to do some lighter coding on here without any issues. Lately, I've been playing around a bit with assembly code, trying to directly talk to a Raspberry Pi, which is something that I've always wanted to learn. And the great thing about this laptop is I can do that on here in eco mode, or I can work on web projects for well over a day on a single battery charge, but there is one catch. From what I understand, the Armoury Crate app on this laptop doesn't do you any favors in regards to battery life, which is somewhat unfortunate, given that it is a nice little app where you can set those different operating modes, look at all your system specs, and do a lot of customization, but I've gone ahead and uninstalled that and switched over to G-Helper instead, which is still quite powerful, but a little easier on the battery. With that in use, I've been getting crazy good battery life in eco and silent mode, and even in the standard mode. This lasts me just under a full day with mixed use, which is pretty decent for a Windows laptop. If you're gaming at all on here though, this can eat through battery in less than 2 hours, so I would say if you do need to get any kind of life out of this thing, you'll probably want to stay away from gaming unless you have access to a charger, but the nice thing about this is it comes with a 200 watt AC adapter, and you can get roughly a 50% charge in around 30 minutes, which is fantastic. The only negative thing about this charger is it does have its own proprietary connector, but you can still charge via the USB-C ports if you want to. they just top out at 100-watt charging, so it won't charge as fast, but I prefer to charge over USB-C anyway, just due to the convenience. In terms of the actual specs on the ports here, one of those is a 40 gigabit per second USB 4 port, while the other one is just a USB 3.2 Gen 2 port that does 10 gigabits per second. So not the fastest by any means, but still quick enough to do almost everything you need. Still, if you look at the new MacBook Pro, all the ports are Thunderbolt 5, and you also get Thunderbolt 5 on the new Strix G16 and Razer Blade 18, so it would have been nice to see that here, but beyond that, there's also two USB-A ports at 10 gigabits per second, an HDMI 2.1 port, a headphone jack, and a micro SD card reader. Personally, I think if you're going to put an SD card reader in anything, just put a full-sized one in there. A lot of people who rely on SD cards for things like photo and video editing are going to use full-sized cards, and you can always use an adapter if you have a micro SD card. This I just find is a lot more limiting in that sense, but other than that, this is more than adequate. Having that USB 4 port is super nice because I can hook this up to my 1440p gaming monitor and run at the full 240 Hz, and this quite honestly kind of negates the purpose of having my PC tower with an RTX 4070 in it. I might turn that into a Linux machine or something and just use this G14 as my primary gaming machine. It won't have the same upgradability of a desktop PC, so its lifespan might be a little more limited, but you can peel off the bottom easily enough where at least you can swap out the SSD or the Wi-Fi card if you want to. Swapping the SSD will probably be useful, especially if you play a ton of games or edit a lot of video on here where you want to bump up that storage a bit. The Wi-Fi card I really can't see switching for the foreseeable future as it does support Wi-Fi 7 with good speed and performance. And you also get the latest and greatest with Bluetooth 5.4 that I've had zero issues with so far, whether that be pairing up a controller or connecting a set of headphones. Honestly, when it comes down to it, this is the first PC laptop in a long time that I could see myself switching to and not really feel like I'm missing much with my MacBook. Sure, there are going to be things like battery life that are still better on Apple Silicon, the port selection could probably be a little better performance-wise, and obviously I wouldn't be able to work on apps for iOS or use Final Cut Pro, but those are really the only downsides that I've seen with this so far. The build quality is outstanding, the performance and the display are amazing, and you can do pretty much anything you want to on here, whether that be gaming, creative apps, productivity, or anything in between. The question that I have for you guys is, at around $2,500 USD or over 3,500 Canadian, would you rather have this, a nice desktop PC, or a MacBook Pro with similar specs? Let me know in the comments down below. That's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video or you found it useful. If you did, feel free to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more tech-related content, or help me design a gaming PC that flashes RGB lights for every percentage your battery drops, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next upload.